can't even believe that I am making this video right now because I had told myself that I would be much more consistent, and that never happened per my last upload, which I don't even know how many months ago it was. It was probably sometime in March or April. Yeah, so I'm honestly just embarrassed with myself, and this is kind of crazy, but I also can't believe that I'm filming looking like this, but I truly could not be bothered to take a shower and put myself together and do my hair, because the more that I put this off, it's just never gonna happen. So I literally told myself I have to sit down. I'm literally filming on my phone because my camera's dead. I guess I never charged it when I filmed my last video. And so I figured if I didn't even start to film this, it wasn't gonna happen today, and I told myself it has to happen today. So here we are. Okay, so as you can tell, I don't know why I have this in my hand. So as you can tell from the title, I am pregnant. We are going to have a fun little chat today because like I said, planned on doing this way earlier. I had always told myself that when we got pregnant again, I was going to be consistent, do updates, kind of share the content that you typically see regarding, you know, couples that are trying to conceive or couples that just recently got pregnant, and kind of just have that journey documented for myself. I'll kind of get into what has happened and like why that is. But it just kind of inevitably became the kind of thing where every weekend it turned into, all right, I'll do it next weekend. And then next weekend would come and I would say I would do it next weekend, and it never happened. So a lot of it has to do with the pandemic, obviously. We are, 8 to 9 months into it now, which is kind of crazy just because the year has weirdly flown by but has been very slow at the same time. So this year has been very crazy for many reasons. It's definitely been crazy to be pregnant during this time, but I really wanted to sit down and kind of explain how everything happened, what we did differently this time, or what I specifically had to do differently for myself that I feel like really assisted with us successfully being able to conceive, especially during such a crazy time. So all things considered, we're obviously very, very excited. I am 32 weeks at this point, which that blows my mind. For, I would say, majority of the pregnancy, I just felt like time was going by so slow, and I think it's because the first and second trimester, mostly the first, of course, you're just so nervous, and I think that's obviously very common for first-time moms and, you know, anyone else that has experienced loss, that, you know, every day just goes by so slow and you're just counting down the days until your next appointment so that you can be reassured that everything's okay. So I feel like that point in time, it was just going by in slow motion. And I think once the anatomy scan hit at 20 weeks, that was kind of like the point in which I really felt safe and comfortable, and again, reassured that everything was okay. Like the doctors would tell me a million times that everything's going perfectly, and, you know, I was able to kind of just like breathe a little bit. And I think after that point, and of course that's the halfway point, things just kind of flew by. And I feel like it's kind of strange to even think that I'm in the 30s right now, just because in the beginning I was like, oh my gosh, that just feels so far away. And now I'm at 32 weeks and I'm just like, holy crap, there's so much that has to be done. So that's why I wanted to make this video, kind of going back in time to talk about what I did differently, just because these were the type of videos that I referenced so much when I was still on my TTC journey. So I hope that this can help someone. I'm just gonna keep it very honest and real and focus on what worked for me. Obviously, I'm not a medical professional. Consult with your doctor whenever you're starting something new, or if you have any specific questions. But again, what worked for me may not work for you. You know, I would watch videos and try things that other people recommended that wouldn't work for me. So a lot of it, unfortunately, is trial and error. But yeah, let's just get into it. We kind of get into it. I do want to say I am, like I said, 32 weeks pregnant. My weeks change every Saturday. Today is Sunday, so I just turned 32 weeks yesterday. And it is December 5th. And it is December 6th today. My due date is January 30th, and we are having a boy. Okay, so I made a list and I made sure to format it. If you see me looking down, it's because I'm referencing some notes, but I basically formatted it in a way where I'm focusing on kind of like the most important thing that I did to the least important, at least to me. So I guess to kind of, again, go back in time, November of 2019, we had a miscarriage and then I had a DNC. After that point, our doctor recommended waiting until, you got 2 periods after the DNC to start again. I know some doctors recommend you can just start right away. Some say wait after you get 1 period. It didn't really matter at that point for us just because I was also in the process of looking for a new job. And I ended up getting a new job. I got the offer, I think it was like Christmas Eve of 2019. So that was probably a month or so after the DNC. And I was obviously set to start, several weeks after in January. So being that I did start a new job, this wasn't something we were necessarily just jumping back into. So that was kind of a distraction for us, just because with the new job, you have to be there at least a year to qualify for like the full maternity benefits. So I kind of had to do the math in my head as to when it would be appropriate to start trying again. I know I've spoken to other women that have been in this situation and they haven't stopped trying, depending how long you've been on your journey. You got to do what just works for you. But in our case, we were still kind of just like getting in the hang of things. It was kind of a crazy Christmas season for us with everything that went on. So, we kind of told ourselves we would take a couple months off to kind of just like regroup. I would get in the groove of things. Obviously, it's stressful to start a new job, so I didn't want to have that new job stress and then trying to conceive stress on top of it. So we basically told ourselves that come March-ish, we would start trying, obviously understanding that just because you're trying doesn't mean you're going to conceive right away. So we got to March. So I believe the date was March 15th or 16th, and that was the first day that my husband and I were both working from home. And obviously we've still been working from home, but that's kind of when things got really serious and really real. So in March, we were home full-time, like I said, both working from home. We didn't really know at that point in time how long things were gonna be this crazy. Full-time in March, and again, that kind of lined up with when we would start trying again. So we kind of decided like, okay, after my last period in February or early March then we said, okay, we're gonna start trying now. So the number one thing I would say that was extremely beneficial, and I recommend this to anyone that is trying to conceive, especially if you're kind of in like the active stage where you're really focusing on trying to understand your body, is to use OPKs. And for my case, I used OPKs and I was temping my BBT, which is my basal body temperature. I was using the Temp Drop arm bracelet, which I'll insert a picture here of what that looks like. So I made sure to temp my BBT and use OPKs together. And I think that was crucial just because, again, I had very irregular periods. 1 month would be maybe a 32-day cycle, and then the next month might be a 50-day cycle. And when you're so irregular, it's really difficult to pinpoint when you're ovulating and when that week is. And, if you're kind of in that game where you understand how these things work, it's like those days do matter. Like, you want to make sure you're optimizing the, days leading up to ovulation, ovulation day. And so I think this is probably like the number one thing I would recommend is to use OPKs. And it's going to be very difficult and frustrating in the beginning, but I promise you it gets easier. And it's even helpful in the event that, if you don't get a positive OPK and you never see that LH surge, then you can bring that information to the doctor and explain to them, like, this is what I've been doing and these are the results I'm getting. I think that's been really helpful. I've also have brought my temp charts to the doctor before to kind of explain what I've been seeing and what I've been noticing going on in my body. So overall, I think that's extremely beneficial in the TTC journey, is to make sure that you are aware of what's going on in your body. You're aware of what's going on in your body. I will say, to conceive in May. So after March, I got a period, and then I can't remember if I got another period after that. I may have, but it was March when we did conceive, and the same steps that I'm going to be reading here are the same steps that I continued doing after we started in March again. But I will say, the month that we did conceive, that was the first time I've ever seen a blazing positive on my OPK. I've never seen that before. When I compared that to months past and just kind of, again, just going through it, it was very apparent at that time that it was truly a positive. Before, I would have, you know, the line would be kind of dark, but it wouldn't be as dark as the control line. And so it was one of those situations where it's like, am I about to ovulate? Am I not? But this month I did see a blazing positive, and I'm going to make a video, a very quick video kind of going through that month and what those OPKs looked like, because I think that is really helpful too, and I would always reference those videos. But I think what had to kind of contribute to that is that I was able to frequently test, being that I was home. So I know a lot of women bring OPKs to work, or if they're out and about, they'll just kind of do it wherever they are. I mean, it's kind of one of those things where you got to do what you got to do. But I have tried that in the past, and I never felt 100% comfortable. It would just, I don't know. So it never fully worked for me. But I feel like working from home, I was obviously a little more in control of my schedule. I was obviously in the privacy of my own home, so I didn't feel like I had to bring all these like weird bags with me with like accessories and things in them. So I was able to test more often and, again, feel like comfortable about it and not have to worry about anyone around me. So I think testing at different times of day, you know, after reading on like different forums, that after lunch is typically the best, not first thing in the morning, just because the afternoon is typically when you would see an LH surge, or even at night. You want to make sure your pee is not too diluted, so you don't want to be, you know, chugging water right before you do it. There's just kind of like all these things to keep in mind. So just kind of play around with the timing of the day until I figured out like, okay, at this point in time, it seems like we're getting somewhere. And then again, test consistently. So whenever I saw that test line getting a bit darker is when I would test probably, I would say 2 times a day, 3 times max, in the event that like I was being extra on top of it and I didn't want to miss that surge. So again, it's a lot of trial and error. I used to just only test first thing in the morning, and I'm realizing now that I could have easily missed my surge. The OPK information essentially is used while you're charting your basal body temperature. So I use the app Fertility Friend, and basically I would just take my temps, input into the chart, and then it would kind of create a graph based on the numbers that I input, and then by day you can see the pattern. It can calculate for you when it detects ovulation. You can also just kind of manually do things on your own. You don't have to use the app and its capabilities to do it for you. And once I did see that I did ovulate at that point in time, it was basically like, all right, game time, so that we can basically track from this point forward my luteal phase to make sure, 1, it wasn't too short, and 2, if I notice any specific dips, there's kind of the infamous ovulation dip, where basically your temperature will dip a bit and then rise back up if you did ovulate. There's the infamous implantation dip, where your temps will dip a little bit and then rise back up and remain elevated. And that'll basically say that implantation did occur. And then at that point in time, you're looking to see that the temperatures remain elevated, so that you kind of have that go ahead to take a pregnancy test and see if it's positive. So there was just a lot going on. But I will say, OPKs and temping, 100% the best thing I ever did, the best investment I ever did. OPKs are super inexpensive on Amazon. You can get a pack of 100 strips for maybe like $9, and that'll last you a good bit of time. And pregnancy tests, I will say, they are expensive, so I've spent a lot of money on those, but never use the digital ones first. That is something you have to remember. You can easily use the cheapy tests. So whenever you're kind of in the beginning stages of, you know, having that antsy, I need to test kind of feeling, always use the cheapy tests, which again, they could be found on Amazon. A lot of ovulation kits also include some pregnancy tests in it. I will include the ones that I used, and then if I ever saw like the faintest line on one of those cheapy tests is when I would use a first response. So just keep that in mind, that pregnancy tests are very expensive and you don't want to just like keep peeing on them if you're unsure and spending all this money. It's just not necessary. So something to keep in mind. Number 2 is the sperm meets egg plan. So I tried this with my husband once before, but I will say we weren't, not necessarily doing it the wrong way, but I don't think we were as consistent with it. And I think it was just kind of like my first time trying it. So I was like, let's just try this and see what happens. But I wasn't really like focused on it. But I will say the month we conceived is the month that we did incorporate this with kind of like everything else we were doing. And I think it did help a lot. And I think the reason is, again, because my periods are so irregular and it's so hard for me to know exactly when I'm ovulating, I feel like I have to kind of just optimize my days as much as possible. So again, I was using OPKs, I was temping, so I had that. But the sperm meets egg plan basically means that you are ensuring that all of your fertile days are being met with the best possible chance for conception to occur. So if you look online, there's a lot of great resources. Again, I'm not an expert, so me explaining it isn't gonna do it any justice. Basically what you have to do is they recommend starting on cycle day 8. On cycle day, just because I had irregular cycles, I think cycle day 8 is a really great starting point if you have more regular cycles, if you have like a 28 to 30 day cycle. But again, it's all about knowing your body. I would typically start around day 12. Typically, that would be even a little early. Starting at day 14 would just be completely fine for me. And basically what you do is you have sex every other day until you get a positive OPK. Once you get that positive OPK, you have sex 3 days in a row, you skip a day, have sex again. So basically the point of that is, so the every other day is a concept that you don't need to have sex every single day. You want to leave some time for the sperm to regenerate at a blazing OPK. So it was much more apparent of when we would need to do the 3 days in a row. And I think the last time that we did it, I didn't obviously have a blazing OPK. So I was just kind of going off of what I thought was a positive, which very easily could have just been a negative technically. So we did incorporate that. I know a lot of people have had success with it, but at the end of the day, it's really just luck and science. And, you know, it's hard to say what exactly in this list did it, if anything at all. Again, maybe it was just like great timing, but I know people who have done it and haven't had success, even though you're optimizing your results. So at the end of the day, it's just kind of doing what you can and leaving the rest up to, you know, fate, honestly. So I think it's a good thing to incorporate if you haven't already, especially, you know, maybe you aren't doing OPKs, maybe you aren't temping, but you still want to optimize the days that you are trying. You can do this. It's going to get very exhausting and it could be very draining just because it ends up feeling like you're on a rigid schedule and you kind of have to incorporate this in your routine, and it's a lot, it's exhausting. So just kind of keep that in mind if you're kind of taking the I don't want to stress about it route, because I think it can be stressful. But again, if there's, you know, if you're not at the point yet where you want to do like all of the charting and temping and all of kind of the extras that come with this process, I think it's a good start. Again, so I think it's a great thing to incorporate. I know people have done it without using OPKs, but typically that is the best way to do it, just because you're not just going to be just having sex every other day for, you know, a very long time. You are a positive result as like the green light to do it 3 days in a row. At that point, you can just really track things because you know that you did ovulate and you did optimize your days as much as possible. And at that point in time, again, like I said, using that in conjunction with temping has been great because I knew for a fact I was able to confirm ovulation. And then at that point in time, I was able to kind of track my luteal phase and kind of see that the temperatures remained elevated and notice any dips that seemed, you know, different from months past. Number 3, reduced stress. everyone tells you this. Oh, it'll just happen. Just like, don't stress out about it. Like, as if it's easy, you know? Like, everyone has something going on. Life is stressful. You can't just like turn off a switch and be like, all right, I'm not stressed anymore. It just doesn't work like that. For us, we obviously pre-pandemic, we both worked in New York City and we live in New Jersey, so we would commute. And the commute itself was really stressful. I think everything about that lifestyle, honestly, is just a lot, just because your days start really early, you come home late. Again, work gets stressful. You come home and you want to do all these things, but like the day is basically done. So I feel like that was just like us go every day for such a long time. And then starting to work from home, it was just like a completely different experience. It was honestly a reset where, you know, we could sleep in a little later. We were a little more in control of our schedules. We were home, so we didn't have to waste, you know, 3 hours both ways commuting. No, it's such a crazy time in the world, and there's so much uncertainty still. It was still weirdly a time where I was not very stressed. And I say that from the perspective of just like not having to commute and having a different day-to-day schedule, obviously not considering everything else. So I think that played a huge role, just because, again, I was kind of out of my normal crazy routine and I was able to relax. I was able to be in the comfort of my own home and save, again, so much time in the day from not commuting and not going into New York City. My days felt longer. I was able to get more done and not feel like I was in a rush all the time. So I honestly think that was it. And I know it's not realistic for everyone. Like, not everyone can work from home. Not everyone can just reduce stress because, like I said, life is crazy and there's always something going on, especially now. It's an exceptionally stressful time. And again, it's one of those things where if you can reduce it, I think it's helpful. But, you know, you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt and just do what you can to kind of reduce stress, even if it's just something very simple like making sure you take time for yourself, whether it's getting a quick workout in, you know, meditating, having just like me time, taking a long bath, whatever it may be. Making sure you find that time to invest in yourself, because your body knows you and your body is very, very smart. And if you're very stressed out and, you know, you're kind of going through a lot mentally, physically, your body knows that, and it's going to say that you're not in a place where you can conceive. So again, I think this was more of a timing thing in terms of when we were trying and kind of where we were at. So I definitely have this higher on my list because I think it definitely did contribute. So again, try and reduce stress as much as you can. I know how annoying it is when people tell you that, but just try your best and don't listen to anyone else. I was guilty of buying vitamins, supplements, whatever it was, a cream, based on videos that I've seen or, you know, influencers talking about it. You know, this has helped me conceive. This is great for fertility. This worked for my best friend. She got pregnant immediately. I would fall into like every single marketing scheme just because you reach that point where you're like, all right, like it worked for these people. Let me try. It might work for me. And I think that it can definitely help in some time. It can definitely help in some cases, like where, you know, you try something new and coincidentally you do get pregnant. Again, it's hard to pinpoint if that's what actually did it. But introducing multiple supplements to your body at the same time is not beneficial necessarily. Your body needs time to process these things, and especially if you're just, you know, it's one thing if you're just including a new vitamin in your routine, but if you're kind of incorporating a couple different things, like your body kind of has to get acclimated with what you're introducing it to. It's not like you're going to start taking a pill and the next day you're going to be the most fertile woman on the planet. It'd be great, but it's just not realistic. And I know that they recommend taking prenatals at least 3 months before you start trying. And that's if you're kind of just like really on top of it. You know, there's obviously a lot of people who conceive and, you know, it's a surprise to them. They didn't expect to conceive so quickly, so they weren't taking prenatals 3 months in advance, which is fine. You just start taking them when you get pregnant. But the reason they say that is because I believe, don't quote me, it takes about 3 months for your body to get completely adjusted and acclimated with a new supplement routine. And that's typically when you start seeing results. And I feel like you can say the same for like a skincare routine, which I'm also guilty of. It takes time for you to see results. It's not going to happen the next day. So I think that was part of the issue too, is like in the past I would buy all these new like supplements and vitamins and then maybe get frustrated if like a month later nothing was changing, and then I would kind of like leave it to the side and then see a new ad for something different and be like, oh, I'm going to try that. And it's just going to frustrate you. You're just going to end up spending so much money on things that you don't need. Again, consult your doctor. If there's a new vitamin or supplement that interests you and you think could be great for you to incorporate in your routine, great. At your next appointment, bring it up to them, try it out. The only thing that I continued taking was my prenatal, and at that point in time, I was taking it for probably almost a year, just because I never stopped after, you know, we conceived the first time. Honestly, prenatals are just still great to take. It is technically a multivitamin, but you do have added benefits. So I still took the same one, didn't change it, and that was the only supplement I was taking at that time. So I think not introducing anything crazy, new, and different to my body was definitely helpful. Next up is Preseed. I'm going to insert a picture here if you're not familiar with Preseed. It mimics egg white cervical mucus. So if you're familiar with ovulating, you know that at around the time of ovulation, your cervical mucus and discharge will change a bit. So technically what you're looking out for is kind of like this egg white consistency, which sounds disgusting, but kind of once you've been through this a million times, you kind of just like become like numb and nothing's disgusting anymore. But basically it becomes like this egg white consistency. And that's what you want to look out for, because that is the optimal environment for sperm to travel. So not a lot of women experience that when they ovulate. And that can be frustrating too if you're just kind of, you know, monitoring your body and you're not seeing those changes that other women very clearly see. Some women know they're ovulating strictly by the discharge that they experience that time every month. And other women don't have that at all. So it's like very confusing at times, because you're like, wait, am I actually ovulating? Because I don't see any changes in my cervical mucus or discharge. So I was one that it wouldn't be very consistent for me. I would experience it sometimes, but not to the point where every single cycle had it. So it was never something I could count on to be kind of like a clear indicator for me of like, yes, I did ovulate, or yes, I am ovulating. So I incorporated Preseed because, again, it mimics that egg white cervical mucus. At that point, it was just kind of an added benefit of like, if it works, it works. I have seen a lot of great reviews online of a lot of women who have tried it and it's worked for them. Again, not everyone experiences that. I have seen reviews of people who've used it a bunch and they haven't had luck. So it's one of those things where I wouldn't, you know, consider it a miracle product. I have seen reviews that do say it is. And I think, you know, again, some people just get lucky with things happening right away. I think it's something good to incorporate if you do have, you know, difficulty spotting egg white cervical mucus, or maybe it's just comfortable for you to use something that is a lubricant with your partner. It is sperm friendly, so it's not going to kill any sperm. It's not going to affect your chances of conceiving. I know there's a lot of lubricants out there that'll technically kill the sperm, so you don't want to use those. So even if you're just incorporating it to incorporate it, it's something good to know. I will say this was probably, the month we conceived was the first month that we did use it consistently. So because I was doing the sperm meets egg plan, the 3 days in a row that we had to have sex, we did use Preseed. So it wasn't like we were just using it on a whim on like a random day here, a random day there. It was all very calculated. So again, it's hard to pinpoint exactly what helped out, but I think all of these different elements combined probably made a difference. Okay, the last two are like things that I did differently, but I don't want to put too much weight on it to say that like this definitely helped. One is fertility yoga. So pre-pandemic, I was doing a lot of hot yoga, a lot of regular yoga, but I was going to a hot yoga studio, and doing that consistently, I don't know how bad that could be. I know it does put your body's obviously under a lot of stress just because it is a pretty intense workout. So I probably wouldn't recommend doing that every single day, but I did do it a few times a week, which I enjoyed. It was a really good de-stressor for me. But then once the pandemic happened, that studio obviously closed down. So I was doing all of my workouts at home. So what I basically did is, again, kind of with the reducing stress, I was focusing on yoga, but specifically fertility yoga. And I was basically just finding videos on YouTube and different channels that offered this. I wasn't, following a specific plan or anything, but I did find it interesting just because there are different resources that break up yoga workouts by where you're at in your cycle. So they have one, you can find videos of fertility yoga when you're on your period, when you're in the follicular phase, when you're ovulating, when you're in the luteal phase. So I thought it was really interesting how there were different poses and different plans and workouts depending on kind of where you were at in your cycle, and it was really tailored to, the woman's body. So I found a lot of cool channels that, again, focus on that, and I would just do that every day. And, a lot of the times you could find like a 20-30 minute video and just do that in the morning or do it after work, and it didn't take up like a ton of your day. So I thought that was great. It was like also a good de-stressor. It's hard to say, again, with things like this of like, it helped or not. I will say I used to be really into heavy weightlifting. That would honestly just like probably stress out my body and fatigue my body too much. And this was more of a balanced way of approaching working out and fitness. And I think, again, when you're on a journey as delicate like this, you don't want to add any additional stress and inflammation to your body that does not need to be there. I think it was a good thing to incorporate. It's free, it's on YouTube. Even if you have your own workout routine that you do, maybe start incorporating, 2 or 3 a week. And again, you can find really short videos. It doesn't have to be like an hour-long workout kind of thing. And it could just be something you do before bed. And I thought it was really relaxing because they would kind of just like go through positive affirmations, and it was just kind of nice to be in a different state of mind versus like, again, kind of being in work mode all day. So something to keep in mind. Okay, lastly is like really pushing it. I know people swear by this, but I am indifferent. I don't have the mindset of like, yes, this definitely works. But I created a fertility rollerball. I know. So I basically bought some essential oils that were said to have fertility benefits. Again, I don't know, maybe not. But clary sage was one of the main ones that I focused on. And basically I created a rollerball. It was like coconut oil as the carrier oil. And then I forget how many drops exactly of clary sage. It might've been like 10 drops total. And at night I would roll it on my ankles, on my wrists, and then kind of in my like pelvis area. The reason for the ankle and wrists is to say that those areas of the body do have some sort of connection to your ovaries and to your reproductive system. Again, I don't know. I saw this online and it was just one of those things where it's like, you know what, this couldn't hurt, so I'm gonna try it. But I'm not going to put this at the top of my list because who's to say if this really helped or not. I will say it smelled nice and it was relaxing right before bed to put this on. It was just kind of like part of my bedtime routine, so it didn't take up time out of my day by any means. But again, there's no magic supplement, vitamin, essential oil, in my opinion. Again, other people might disagree and they might say like, oh, essential oils can change your life and can cure things. And again, I don't have enough research or information on that to say whether or not these things are true or not, but it's something to consider, I guess. Maybe if you already have these essential oils at home or you were planning on buying some anyway, you can kind of look into this and see if there's an essential oil that maybe does have benefits related to fertility and reproductive health and issues and things like that. But again, I wouldn't go spending all your money on these things. It's a good thing to add, but I wouldn't put all of my time and energy on that. I think there's other methods such as using OPKs and temping and, you know, things of that nature that are way more effective and honestly less expensive. Okay, before I end this video, this is where we're at right now. I'm just looking like an angel, truly. And don't mind the mess in this room. This is my office and there's just stuff everywhere. We're in the process of organizing not just the nursery, but every single room and closet and all the drawers to make sure we have extra space for everything, just because if you saw our basement right now, you would be like, what the heck, just because we have baby stuff everywhere. And again, I'm 32 weeks, so I feel like I'm at that point. Oh my God, I'm out of breath from walking up the stairs. I feel like I'm at that point. I need to find a place for everything, you know, kind of make that list of anything else that I'm missing that I need to get, just because I'd rather be on the early side of things. You never know. I could go into labor early. Doesn't mean that I'm definitely going to, you know, give birth at 40 weeks. So this is where we're at. There's the belly. And I can't believe it took me this long to make this video, but we are here and we did it, and I'm out of breath. But please subscribe so that I have more motivation to make videos. All right, guys, see you in the next one.